In the last episode, we drove across the Red Brick Bridge, visited a mountain stream, ate oysters, crayfish, and sampled some of Tasmania's finest grape juice before setting ourselves up in Bicheno. In this episode, we continue up the East Coast, stopping at St Helens, Ansons and Mussleroe Bay, check out the wind turbines at Cape Portland, and have a bit of a look around Lonnie before we head back to Brisbane. Morning all. To continue on our story, we've shown you Mussleroe Bay, which is the first shack that we built, and we did consider that a shack. It was a carport that we eventually filled in and then put a bed and a bit of cooking area and whatever in it. So after quite a few years, I wouldn't say we outgrew it, but I guess lots of things change and your ideas change, and we had some friends that had a place down at a place called Bicheno, and we came down, spent a few weekends with them, and absolutely fell in love with the place. So we put Mussleroe on the market, came down, found ourselves a block of land down here. Great little spot. We'll show you the images of it. And what happened was the little place next door, he owned the block of land, and he wanted to sell it, and it just had a few apple trees and things like that on it. So we bought that block of land, and then progressively over a period of time built what we called it a shack, but everyone called it a holiday home, so we considered that a bit of a holiday home. So I guess it evolved. The kids got a bit bigger and older, and we sold the block of land at Mussleroe, which enabled us to do what we wanted to do pretty well with the shack or the holiday home at Bicheno. So we got it comfortable. It's a two-story place, and I'm going to put some images over there of us building what it looked like prior to. I can remember a quick story. I can remember the builder ringing me one morning, and he's gone like, "JK, have a look at this. I'm going to send you through some photos." He said, "You won't believe what we're watching," and they're standing up on the top deck watching a pot of whales go past. I said, "Oh, I'm not paying you to watch whales. I'm paying you to build a shack." So yeah, it's a spectacular view, and I guess the opportunity came to move to Queensland through work, and it was a tough decision. We didn't take it lightly, and eventually we decided that we'd take it. One of these things, if you don't have a go, you never know. So Liz doing what she did, we thought we had nothing to lose. If it all turned to shit, we could always pack up, come home. We rented out our house, we rented out this holiday home, and then ultimately a few years after that we sold the house, and it took us about another 2 years to actually come to terms with the fact that we were comfortable where we were doing other things, and we were comfortable to let Bicheno go. Having come back, wow, it's Again, it's one of those emotional sort of things, but you know, we don't regret the move, certainly not. But this place has changed considerably, and whether we would have ultimately adjusted to the change, there's so much more land now that's been developed. The guys that we're talking to, you know, they've got to go so much further to catch fish. The cray boats that used to work out of here no longer here. So I think there's only a couple of boats that actually work out of Bicheno now. There were 8 or 10 or 12 fishing boats. So their whole economy's changed. It's really based on tourism now. But some of the changes, you know, they've put a jetty in, they've put a pier in, upgraded the boat ramp. So we'll show you a quick look around down here at the jetty. But we used to come down here and catch squid. Yeah, it was awesome. And it is a lovely little spot. So if ever you come down here, a lot of people miss this because they go into St Helens and they zoom through Bicheno on their way to Fraser or Coles Bay. So yeah, if you're down this way, make sure you take a day and have a look around. There is a lot to see, and it is a beautiful little spot. So from here, we're heading up to St Helens. So we'll catch up there.
Now seems like an appropriate time to tell you a little bit more about this place. Bicheno is cradled between the Douglas Apsley and the Fraser National Parks on the Tasman Highway, around 2 hours 20 minutes from Hobart and just under 2 hours from Launceston, making it quite accessible for weekend getaways. It has a population of around 950, which swells extensively over the holiday periods. The town is primarily a fishing port and beach resort. The town was named in honour of James Ebenezer Bicheno, the British colonial secretary for Van Diemen's Land around 1843. The first historical reference for the place that was to become Bicheno was made by James Kelly during his circumnavigation of Van Diemen's Land. He landed here when it was known as Warb's Harbour. It was a location for a number of shore-based whaling stations in the late 1830s and early 1840s. In the Lions Park, near the tennis courts, is the grave of Warba Dabar, after whom Warb's Harbour was named, an Aboriginal woman who was taken from a tribe as a teenager to become a sealer's woman. Her bravery in rescuing 2 sealers in a storm is commemorated by a headstone in the park. The hinterland was established for farming in the mid-1840s, which continues today. Coal was discovered in 1848. In 1854, the harbour was expanded to provide port facilities for the coal mines at Denison River. The coal was transported to the port via a 5-kilometre horse-drawn tramway. The use of Bicheno as a coal port was short-lived. The discovery of gold in Victoria saw most of the residents depart in 1855, and for nearly a century, Bicheno became a sleepy little fishing village. Fishing continued to be the lifeblood of the town, with substantial quantities of crayfish, abalone, scallops and trevally being caught, although this has scaled back since COVID. Surrounded by the clear blue East Coast water, white squeaky sand and the distinctive granite rocks dotted with orange lichen, Bicheno is a beautiful spot to base yourself when exploring the East Coast. If you're a wildlife lover, a water baby, or simply enjoy the relaxing beachside vibe, then this is the place for you, and that was the attraction for us. At dusk, Bicheno's resident population of fairy penguins make their way from the sea up to their burrows after feeding all day. Seeing these cute little penguins up close and in the wild is truly a special experience. Tasmania may not be on top of your list as a dive location, but its crystal clear water makes it a perfect spot to get your scuba gear out. Governor Island Marine Reserve is one of Tasmania's best scuba diving sites. It is just off the coast, across from the Gulch. Along with a huge variety of fish, there are also amazing kelp and sponge gardens. Winter has the best conditions, with visibility getting up to 30 metres. With a couple of dozen different dive sites in the reserve, Liz and I dived extensively in the area, both in the marine park and areas south and north, hunting the rock lobster and abalone.
Sorry about the noise, guys, but Governor Island, which is just over there, is one of the largest tern nurseries in the world. So at times they can be quite clattery and quite noisy. But I just wanted to quickly show you some of the age of this place. If you have a look at, we're on the new part of the jetty now. But if you have a look at some of the stonework from years gone by, it'll give you a sort of, I don't know what it dates to, honestly don't. But when you look at it, it's certainly a vintage.
Before we leave this morning, I want to take one more walk around the point. You know, there's something soothing about the ocean. I think it helps you to reconnect or something like that. All I know is I feel better after the experience. Oops, almost forgot to mention the glass bottom boat that does tours in the Gulch a couple of times a day depending on the season and the weather.
While we all discuss the weather.
A quick drive up to Denison Court to have a look at our old place. I wonder what changes, if any, the new owners have made.
How long till the break of dawn? How long till it days? How long till it days?
Okay, let's make our way to St Helens.
Let's say it's a bed we all know.
This truly is one of the most scenic drives you can do. The road hugs the coastline all the way to the Falmouth turnoff. Then you travel through Scamander, Beaumaris, and then into the fishing village of St Helens. After checking into our accommodation, we head out to Binalong Bay, and by then it will be time for lunch.
Till the break of dawn. How long till it days? How long till it
Years ago, my parents would come down here every Christmas with us, and we would camp on this area, and we'd swim in these beaches and we'd fish in this sea. Binalong Bay was where I grew up camping. The basics of all that we knew. You know, we used to learn to swim here. I think this is the first place I actually started diving with my brother. Back then you didn't need a licence. Just used to hire some tanks and in we'd go. But yeah, we had many a Christmas holiday spent on this beautiful ground just behind me. We'd set up the tent, Mum and Dad would go fishing, then they'd come in and then the kids would jump in the boat with Dad and we'd go out catch flathead and cooter. It was a great time.
Crayfish for lunch.
Oh.
Like it wasn't Harvey Bailey's, I tell you. Big walking track.
13 kilometres north of Binalong Bay are the Gardens, which offers some of the best vistas of the Bay of Fires. Named by Lady Jane Franklin, wife of the then governor in the early 1800s. Famous for its vibrant orange rocks, sparkling azure blue water and long white beaches. The beautiful white sands can be attributed to the high quartz content of the granite boulders, and the bright orange colouring of the rocks is actually lichen. Now, lichen are a combination of algae and fungus that live together in a symbolic relationship. The algae provides food by photosynthesis, while the fungus provides a protected environment for the algae. Before we head back, I think a short walk is in order out to the point.
Good morning, John.
Morning, Liz. How are you?
Thank you.
How'd you sleep?
Very nicely, thank you.
What about you, Melissa? Good. No snoring? Good.
So, where are we today, John?
I'm pretty excited about today because we get to showcase what I think is probably one of the most bloody beautiful places in Tasmania, and where Liz and I first went and bought a block of land. I'll have to put some dates down there because I can't remember, it was that long ago, but none of the kids were born. We scrounged together enough for this block of land. I think we paid something like $8,000 for 40 metres by 20 metre block, and it was a bush block, so it took a lot of work. Again, I'm going to try and put some photos down the bottom. But so to get there, we're actually going to go on what they call the Ansons Bay Road, or the Priory Road. So it's a gravel road that leads from St Helens up into the Mount William National Park. So rather than following the highway, as you guys well know, we tend to try and go the other way. So it's about 60 k's. It's nice and early. It's a bloody spectacular day again. Queensland's currently in the grips of a massive heat wave, and we're sitting down here. We're going to feel the pain, I reckon, when we go home in a few days' time. But yeah, anyway, we're going to showcase this today, and yeah, just show you what where we started camping and caravanning.
Policeman's Point Road. Very pretty.
Let's make it last, put a new record on. I'm so tired of this old song. Turn it up a notch. Let's show 'em what we got. Let's make it last. This is too good to lose.
So here we have the mouth of the Ansons Bay River.
Turn it up a notch. Let's show 'em what we got. Let's make it last. This is too good to lose. Baby, we can't kick this blues. Honey, break the beat. All the song that's on repeat and make it
And that is looking back towards Ansons Bay, way over in the distance.
From Mussleroe we head further west to Cape Portland and the wind farm.
It's awesome. We're actually driving in amongst these windmills, the wind farm. They're just huge.
Here's some information that I was able to find out about the wind farm. Special thanks to Hydro Tasmania. Wind studies were undertaken in the early 1980s. We know from first-hand experience that there is no shortage of wind in this part of the state. The project started with a wind monitoring station erected in the early 2000s. Consultation with all stakeholders, this included engagement with the Tasmanian Aboriginal community, which saw the lagoons and some of the coastal sand dunes excluded from the project for cultural and heritage reasons. The planning and environment approval took a number of years. Considerations had to also be made for bird utilisation of the site, since several rare species of migratory birds use the lagoon and coastal area at Cape Portland as important habitat. It took more than a decade since the start to bring the project to fruition. 2009 saw the start of the infrastructure with roads and hard stands started. Then came some challenging times. The project paused until late 2011, then around 15 months later the project was commissioned. The Cape Portland property is over 5,500 hectares and has been used for sheep and cattle grazing since the early to mid 1800s. The turbines themselves are 80 metres tall, with 3 blades spanning 44 metres and capable of producing 3 kilowatts each. With a total of 56 wind turbines, it has the total capacity to generate 168 megawatts. There is an interpretation centre based out here that contains a stack more information about the local Aborigines and the building process of the wind farm. Definitely worth a look. Then we turn the Ranger around and head back to Launceston. What's this? Another grape juice factory? Well, you can't go past Piper's Brook Vineyard and not call in. Come on.
So Mel, what did you think?
It was alright.
Which one did you like?
The first one,
Which was?
the Pinot G.
Pinot.
Grigio.
Very good.
Welcome to Kings Bridge, the Cataract Gorge and the mighty South West River. The bridge span was built in 1864 in Manchester, England. It was constructed of wrought iron and was transported to Launceston for final assembly. At the time, it was named the Cataract or South West Bridge, and it was the only form of vehicular crossing of the river in Launceston. In 1904, the second parallel span was added to widen the bridge. The span was almost identical to the original, but was fabricated locally in Launceston instead of overseas, and the bridge was also renamed Kings Bridge. This caretaker's cottage was originally constructed in 1890. Sadly, the building was not maintained and fell into disrepair until 1981, when it was reconstructed to its original design. I'm so pleased that they did, as it's part of the nostalgia of the area. This section below, called Picnic Rock, is highly significant, as it was a landing for boats and also a popular picnic spot before the walking track and cliff grounds were developed. People would row their boats up the South West River and moor them just below these rocks. The old stone stairs are still visible if you look closely.
Well, there's still a little bit of flow coming down from the spring rains, as you can see in the background.
Over the years, many boat tours have been available. This image is of the Lady Stelfox. I'm not sure what year this is, but here today it would appear that the tours of the river are still available.
Cool. As the mighty South West winds its way down into the centre of Launceston, it comes down through the mighty Cataract Gorge. This is awesome. All the years that we lived here, I think this is probably the third time that I've ever walked the track. So, you know, shame. But it's just nice to come back and do this sort of stuff. It sort of certainly does bring back some memories. But this is awesome. I'll see if I can find some footage of it in flood, because it really is chalk and cheese. At the moment it just seems so sedate, just sneaking along a little river. But yeah, man, it's got some power when there's a bit of water about. So we'll venture on. Today's all about just having a bit of a look around the city, catching up with Liz's sister, and just really just a chill day. But we thought we'd bring you along just to show you some of the older heritage of the place, because it does have certainly some old buildings. Well, as I said, there's some lovely old buildings around the place here. Absolutely spectacular, and they've done a really good job. Like, they've kept the facade at the front, which they probably had to do, and then made it all a bit new from behind, make it a bit more functional. Well, hi guys, just interrupted this episode to give you a little bit of an update. When we got back from Tasmania, you know, we had a great time down there, and over the last sort of month I've been editing that footage, and you know, both Liz and I started to get a little bit more homesick after doing that. So what we've actually done, we've bitten the bullet, we've booked a car and the camper on the boat. So we're heading off on the Spirit in January 2024. So we're going to head down for about 2 months. There's some things that I guess we didn't have time to do that we would have liked to have done in that couple of weeks that we were there. So we're going to give ourselves a couple of months. Hopefully we've picked the right time of the year. We know that the best time of the year is sort of that, you know, mid-Feb, March. So we're going to head down. Some of the things we want to do, we want to go down to Cockle Creek again. You know, we've been to the Cape. We've been to the southernmost point, which is Cockle Creek, but we didn't document it. So just for our own records, we want to do that. There's a lot of the west coast that we want to do. Some of it I did a long time ago as a young fella, and you know, there were some tracks down there that were pretty awesome. They probably now are sealed roads, because we know what happens with progress. But yeah, we want to go back down there, have a bit of a look around there. I want to go up and spend a couple of days in the Highlands, at least a couple of days, see if I can't get myself a trout. You know, we miss those sort of trips. So we're going to catch up on all those sorts of things. Certainly there'll be family and friends. We're going to hopefully spend a few days at Mussleroe with some friends down there. And so yeah, we're really looking forward to it, really excited about it. But there's a lot more to happen between now and then. So stay tuned. We've got some good stuff coming up. We had a couple of weeks down in New South Wales, some places that we hadn't been before, so we did a bit of a loop. So that's coming up. We've got a few 7 days and 5 day trips because Liz has been able to wangle some shifts. So we're venturing a little bit further afield from the normal weekend stuff, and we're looking forward to that. And certainly we've got the new car that we're going to show the fit out and what we ended up doing with all of that. So stay tuned. Some exciting times coming up. You know, we're certainly excited about it all, and we'll see you guys soon. And remember, don't let the dust settle. Well guys, this brings this episode to a close. We hope you've enjoyed it. Before I go, there's a thank you that I need to throw out to my brother Phil, who lent us his Ranger, which enabled us to have a bit of a cruise around. We hope you've enjoyed it. Yeah,
This has been a great mini trip to Tasmania.
we've cried, we've laughed, and everything in between.
Seen some old places that we used to haunt. Yeah, it's just been a great trip.
So, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit the like button. Maybe think about subscribing. Keep an eye on our socials on Facebook and Instagram. We're putting a little bit more stuff up now. We're getting out and about. Until next time, again, thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.